All right, guys, welcome back to the Pocket Mads channel. It's Maddie here. We're back, and it's Wednesday. Normally, on Wednesday, we make videos about all of the cool, sort of surprising off-meta decks in the metagame, but something happened, and that is actually that ranked released. That's right. The new ranked season started up today, so we're going to be doing a video today about the best decks to play for ranked. It's like the question, right? We talk about it every week. At least every week that ranked is out. So the best decks for ranked video coming out today, and then Friday we'll do our sort of off-meta, kind of midweek roundup showcase video. I don't really know. We'll figure it out. But anyway, here we go. Before we get into the deck lists, though, you got to go register for PMPT number 20. I know the ranked season is out. People are going to be busy. They're going to be grinding ranked. I get all that, but go ahead, take a little break. Be an absolute legend and play in PMPT number 20. Help move the metagame forward. And I'm really excited. You know, my favorite weeks of the seasons are actually the third weeks. That's a fun fact about myself because the third week is actually where I think surprises happen most often. So that's what I'm excited for. Link to register down in the description below, and all of the information is going to be on the Discord. You should go and check out the Discord. Okay. Let's get into it. So we've got 7 decks here on the video as normal, and then a weekly wild card at the end of the video. What I actually did differently this week is I actually put these decks in order of sort of how I would play them. Of course, not including the wild card, but we'll start from the bottom and then go to the top. So let's do it. The first deck that we're going to take a look at is Mimikyu. Yeah, and I actually really do like Mimikyu for a lot of different reasons. I think that the nature of Mimikyu and the stall factor makes it probably, if not the best, definitely one of the best new cards, Pokemon at least, to come out in B2. Fantastical Parade. This metagame has been warped around a little bit. I think that, again, a lot of people are a little bit disappointed with some of the new Mega Pokemon. They just, for some reason, don't seem to be releasing things that are, like, overwhelmingly strong. I don't really know. As far as Mega Pokemon go, it's really just Absol thrown in with Hydreigon, of course, getting carried by Hydreigon, as always, and then it's Altaria still, so nothing's really changed. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Kangaskhan is a good card, but the 3 energies, as it's sort of proven, has just sort of been a little bit too much to overcome. At the end of the day, like, it's 3 energies is 3 energies, so it's a little difficult to play Kangaskhan, even though it's a strong Pokemon. But Mimikyu, I do think, is a significant factor in the metagame for a lot of reasons. And this is going to be Mimikyu with Giratina and then Greninja thrown in. And to be fair, I do think this is probably the best way that people are playing Mimikyu right now. Peculiar Plaza, the new stadium card, is going to give free retreat for our Psychic Pokemon here. But the interaction between Mimikyu's Disguise ability and Water Shuriken Greninja is something that actually has a lot of synergy. And I just think that there's really nothing in the game that pairs as well with Mimikyu than Greninja does. And of course, Giratina makes sense as well because Giratina is a broken card. A lot of stuff you can do with this archetype because it is pretty simple, right? You could play, the new stadium that gives all of your basic Pokemon plus 20 HP. That could be pretty cool. So we'll have to kind of just wait and see what the metagame sort of unfolds right now, but we're definitely in sort of the Greninja meta. And that's the reality of it. And I think that even more so than ever before, it's a weird thing where I think a lot of decks, if they're not playing Greninja, are really kind of stacking up like a wall in the active spot. We're seeing that a little bit more and more as time goes on. Some Suicune decks are playing the Stadium card. You know, they got 180 HP, but a lot of times they can want Greninja EX in the active with 190 HP plus Indeedee healing. You got things like Steelix EX. So there's so many things like that. Mimikyu is one of those walls. It's a Pokemon that will stay in the active spot for 2 turns at the very least. And that's the inherent synergy here between Mimikyu and Greninja. And I don't really know how else to explain it other than the fact that every single turn you're able to buy, that gives you an additional turn that you can use Water Shuriken, but not only that, another turn for you to potentially draw into your Cyrus win condition. So Mimikyu is slowing the game down, right? It's not only guaranteeing effectively that you're going to get 140 damage on the board, which makes it one of the best, I think, basic EX Pokemon in the entire game, but it's doing it across 2 turns. And that basically means you get an additional turn to ping with Water Shuriken and then draw into your win condition Cyrus. So I think this is actually a really strong deck. Its matchups are interesting. You know, you may look at this deck and think, wow, what about Hydreigon? This deck has a winning Hydreigon matchup. Not something you maybe might have seen coming. What's also interesting, though, is that it has a losing Suicune matchup. So, we probably should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but we'll do it right now. How are we selecting the decks that we're going to talk about today? Well, I think tournament results are always important. So we take a look at what's been winning, what's been placing well, average win rates in online competitions. Those are all factors that are really important. But ranked specifically over the last, I guess, 3 or 4 ranked seasons since they did the update, and they added win streaks to Master Ball. I think that sort of high roll based deck lists are actually kind of the way to go now. It is sort of becoming the true meta for online ranked, which for better or for worse, it is what it is. So that's another factor, just sort of the inherent differences between the win streak bonuses you can get in ranked and not so much tournaments. Although, of course, high roll decks are really prominent in the tournaments anyway. But yeah, definitely high roll decks, high potential decks that can go on big win streaks. That's going to be an advantage. And then we take a look at the meta landscape. That's the one thing I always do as well. So if there's one prominent deck in the meta right now, which there is currently, then we also make some selections based around their matchups into that really common played archetype, which right now, as we all know, is Hydreigon. So Hydreigon is the deck. So anything in this video is either going to be really good into Hydreigon or just something I think that can compete with it to that same degree. So that's why we have included the Mimikyu deck in here, because it is actually a deck that has a strong matchup into Hydreigon. Not something that I've necessarily tested a lot myself, but that's what the data shows. So that's our first deck, is going to be Mimikyu and Greninja. A bit of a tangent there, I apologize. The next one is going to surprise you. And I've actually, I'm really happy to mention this right now. The next one, guys, is Guzzlord. Yeah, Dark UB. Dark Ultra Beast is back in a really fun way. And honestly, it's hilarious to me because I think a lot of the signs early in the season pointed to Buzzwole potentially being a really strong contender to enter back into the metagame, right? The Grass Ultra Beast package. But you know what ended up happening is that, of course, Suicune is still prominent in the metagame. Buzzwole never loved playing Suicune. And then we also have Altaria. And Altaria really is, if it's not Hydreigon, it's Altaria. That's kind of the meta at this point. So Buzzwole struggles with both of those matchups, although it does have a pretty decent matchup into Hydreigon. Guzzlord is different. Guzzlord is a very, very different Pokemon here. And this build actually does well into both Suicune, Greninja, and Hydreigon. And the reason this does well into Hydreigon is mostly because of the aggro Naganadel package, which is, one of the most underrated things in the entire game. I think that being able to attack for 40 damage on your second turn before they can evolve with Poison Barb, with Nihilegos, that's easily 60 damage, which KOs a lot of dinos before they can evolve. So that aggressive stuff is actually really, really strong. And Hydreigon's going to be forced to go through, hopefully, either, double Naganadels or go through your Celesteela with the Poison Barb. The chip damage is what's going to add up here. And Guzzlord with high HP is going to be able to live multiple hits. And it really is just a massively effective strategy when you consider a lot of the decks that are popular in the metagame. So this is something that I've actually been really happy to talk about. I haven't I noticed this only just like this past week. It's one of the highest win rate decks in the entire game. The poison strategy with like things like Rocky Helmet in general, but the Poison Barb Nihilego strategies are really good in the metagame. And they're good actually not only into or with when you're playing them with Hydreigon, but they're good into Hydreigon. And that's a really prominent factor for sure. And a lot of these walls that are sitting in the active spot as well don't like to be poisoned and then tick for like 30, 40 damage. That's just the reality of it. So Naganadel, Nihilego, and then Guzzlord to finish up the games. It's a lot better than you might think. If you wanted to go ahead, try the Dark Ultra Beast package, the throwback of Guzzlord. Go try it out. You'll be, I think, very surprised. This is also a deck that's much more consistent now with Copycat. I can't really remember the last time Guzzlord was relevant, but I do know that before all of the Megas came out, Guzzlord was still, it was definitely one of those decks that was actually quite prominent to deal with Suicune and Greninja. So it's a strange one, I know. Go ahead, try it out yourself. All of the data shows that Guzzlord does well into some really popular matchups, and I find that to be very, very interesting. We also still have funny grindcore shenanigans. It's just a kind of an anti-mega Pokemon in its own right. Lusamine, you can set it up into the late game. And what I really love about Guzzlord is its high HP amount, proving to be really relevant. Not a lot of Pokemon in the game are hitting you for 170, which means that you can come in, you can hit with a Grindcore, or you can just come in late game, hit 120 with Tyrannical Hole, soak up a hit, and then hit again, and then the game's over, right? So you can 2-hit KO Mega Pokemon, especially with that Poison Barb stuff. So a really strong deck, a deck that I think is actually really well positioned, a bit of a throwback, but not something I think a lot of people expected to see today, but I had to add it onto the list. I had to. It's actually quite good. It's way better than you might think. Okay. Next up is Suicune Greninja, but it's not actually. So this is actually, we just pulled up the deck that won this past weekend because this is going to be double Greninja EX and then with Guzma thrown in. So kind of a slightly different variant of Suicune and Greninja. And the reason we're playing the Hydreigon stuff and the reason we're playing the Greninja stuff and we're playing Guzma, I think it's just actually pretty well positioned for this current metagame right now. So Altarias with Chinglings, like still always will do well. Like the Chingling stuff is going to slow down Greninja kind of no matter what. But the thing here with this deck list is if you're not going up against Chingling, Greninja EX itself is actually a really prominent Pokemon into Altaria because you can live a hit pretty confidently, right? So Indeedee plus Giant Capes plus Iridas, like you can live multiple hits from things like Altaria. Hydreigon is another example. So Greninja's high HP amount makes it actually a really interesting Pokemon. Now, in a lot of matchups, you do rely on Water Shuriken and Cyrus as like your primary win condition, but what we're seeing right now is just a ton of Altaria. And when there's a lot of Altaria, the way that you beat Altaria, quite frankly, is by forcing it into the active spot and then just sort of out KOing it, out damaging it. Because Altaria's got 190 HP and hits for 130. And they can boost that damage and they can survive maybe a little bit more with things like Indeedee. They can put you asleep. So this is the double Greninja helps you a lot into Altaria specifically. It's not as good into Hydreigon, so that's the only exception here to this deck list is that into Hydreigon, you would probably rather have the double Water Shurikens because a big win condition is, KOing their Absol or, like kind of getting around whatever's in the active. So that's definitely an aspect here. The traditional Suicune Greninja will be a little bit better into Hydreigon, so, if you're just seeing a bunch of Hydreigon, then just maybe don't play this version, but into basically everything else that's prominent in the current metagame, I actually really like this Greninja EX deck. Again, double Greninja EX is a different deck than double Water Shuriken. It's categorized differently in Limitless, so we have the data, the matchup data separated. And when you take a look at the win rates, the most successful, highest percentage win rate decks so far this season, double Greninja EX is up there amongst the very, very top. Not something that, people don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it got first place this past weekend, so maybe people's eyes were opened up a little bit. I just wanted to pull up this list once again because I love it. I love double Greninja and I love Cyrus. We're getting rid of those, those heavy helmet decks can be very annoying. The Snorlaxes, the Steelixes, but a lot of other things as well. Now, if you're playing this deck, you definitely don't want to hit Oricorio Magnezone, but honestly, guys, and people are going to comment, for sure. They're going to be like, oh, what are we doing with Oricorio? But I think the current state of the metagame with Hydreigon being the most played deck, I just really don't think Oricorio Magnezone is going to be that relevant in ranked. Someone's going to comment and be like, oh, I hit 15 Oricorios in a row or whatever. And maybe you do. But in my past ranked experience, since Hydreigon's really entered into the meta, I don't think a lot of people play ranked or grind ranked, at least in the higher ranks with Oricorio Magnezone. So if you do hit some, it'll be very few. So it's not really a factor in this ranked season or the last few ranked seasons for that matter. But for this ranked season, I really wouldn't factor in Oricorio to building your decks. And that is an interesting thing to note, but I think it's also kind of reflected in tournament play as well. We haven't really seen Oricorio Magnezone do much in tournaments, and quite frankly, it's kind of disappointing because I think Oricorio is a very healthy card for the meta, and to be honest, I don't think Hydreigon's a very healthy card for the metagame, but, it is what it is. So here's Greninja and Suicune. Again, if you just prefer the other list, it probably could be thrown on this in this video as well. So this is just the version I wanted to showcase because I kind of do like it a little bit more. All right, next up, let's talk about really the biggest things in the meta. All right, the things that, again, people like to classify the meta as just whatever is the most popular. And we definitely know what that is right now. So the two things that basically everybody's playing, I would say probably 30 or 40% of the players on ranked as well as in tournaments are going to be playing either Hydreigon or, as you see on the screen, Altaria. Now, the thing about Altaria is that at least there's a lot of different ways we can play it, which makes me like it a little bit more. It's also a mega Pokemon. It's like literally the only mega Pokemon that has really solidified itself into the metagame. If Dina or if the developers of Pokemon Pocket are ever watching my content, if they're watching this part of the video right now, I would just stress to them that, take a look at Mega Altaria and everything you've given it, whether it's Jirachi, whether it's the Lycia package and Chingling, whether it's Sing, Swablu, take a look at this Pokemon and then just sort of use it as a baseline for maybe giving us a new Mega Pokemon, because I really think most Megas are quite poorly designed or they're just really bad in the current aspect of the metagame. Stage 1, 2 energies, the whole package, Mega Altaria is a really good card. It is. It's probably the best Pokemon in the game. And that's my professional opinion, and by professional I mean not actually professional, but you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, this is going to be like the new wave for Altaria. It's sort of on the fence. I don't really know if Gourgiest Altaria is like the best thing for ranked, but I do know in tournaments this deck has been absolutely insane. So this is what I classify as tempo Altaria or consistency Altaria, balanced Altaria. There's a lot of different ways you play Altaria, but I'm going to break it down into two categories, which I think are both on this particular list here today. So Gourgeist is a really interesting card. It's just a really consistent, nice attacking Pokemon. Does 70 damage, non-EX. We can just clear out Oricorios and we don't have to worry about it. The reason why Gourgeist, when you pair it with Altaria, is so good prominently in tournament play is because now we have Chingling and Altaria and all the stuff that makes us do quite well into things like Hydreigon and Suicune and Greninja, which traditionally are matchups that Altaria actually wins. And then you can play Gourgeist, and now we no longer worry about Oricorio because the only thing holding back Altaria, I believe, over the last few seasons has been its losing matchup. It's basically auto-lose matchup into Oricorio. So when you play Gourgeist, it does a couple of things to the deck. It is turning that like 90% losing win rate into Oricorio Magnezone into like effectively, I don't even know, it's like a 90% win rate. It's basically an auto loss into an auto win, but it's just by adding the Gourgeists into your deck list. But it does affect the deck a little bit else in some other ways as well, which is interesting. So the Suicune Greninja matchup for Altaria Chingling was always floating around 50 to 53%. It was like a little bit above 50-50 coin flip, which may not seem like a big deal, but into things like Suicune and Greninja, that's going to be a really big factor. Hydreigon is also sort of pushing that envelope as well, which is crazy. But just keep in mind, Suicune not nearly as popular. Again, people have in their mind, because it did, win the last couple of tournaments. So I get it. But people have in their mind that I think Suicune is like the forefront of the meta. It's really not. It's only going to end up being like it'll be less than 10% of the ranked meta. It might even be around 5 or 6%, just like it is in tournament play, which is crazy to think about, but that's how the power scaling has gotten. I don't think they've really added a lot to the game that makes Suicune Greninja better, which is a good thing, but they have made things like Altaria and various other strategies like Hydreigon better. So anyway, again, the Gourgeist thing, so what it's doing is it's improving the Oricorio matchup, but it's making the Suicune matchup a little bit worse. So and it's weird that it's coming at a kind of a perfect time for that because there's not that much Suicune in the metagame, right? So you go from having a little bit of a winning matchup into Suicune just by playing Altaria Chingling, but when you add Gourgeist into the whole mix, it does kind of bog up the deck a little bit in the core strategy, and that makes your Suicune matchup a little bit of a losing matchup, which is an interesting piece of data that I noticed over the last few weeks or so. Still a really decent matchup into Hydreigon and most other things into the metagame. And I think for that reason, if you take a look at this deck list's win rates across the board this season, nothing is like lower than or like around 45%. And that's like the very lowest, right? So this is a deck about a 54% average win rate throughout the season. So amongst the highest, again, basically auto wins into Oricorio decks. And basically all of the other matchups are either a little bit above or a little below 50%. There might be some really good matchups thrown in there. I don't remember. But yeah, this is the most consistent deck in the game all across the board. If you're looking to not worry about Oricorio, not lose to Oricorio, not really care what you match up against, you're always going to have a really, really good chance of winning. So honestly, that's what this deck is. It's just full consistency, full tempo. It's got answers for everything. If you get the right cards, if you draw properly, like you're going to be able to beat any deck in the entire game. And I genuinely do mean that. This deck can beat anything. We have Jirachi for bench damage. We have Chingling item lock. We have Gourgeist for Oricorio. We have Cyrus. We have Sabrina. We have Training Arena to buff not only Gourgeist damage to 80, but Mega Altaria to 140, which is a great number. We have Mars, Copycats, Researches, everything you could possibly need. And Altaria is chilling. It's definitely sort of chilling. Definitely the most consistent, well balanced deck in the metagame, which is kind of unique because again, like I said earlier in the video, Highroll is sort of the theme. It's like the strategy for playing in the metagame for ranked right now at least. So this is kind of the deck that I would play if you don't want to play Highroll. Like this is the anti sort of Highroll RNG deck. But next up here, we get the opposite of that last deck, which is the way we play Altaria, but we play it in a Highroll way, which is hilarious because this deck list is actually, I'm showcasing this after the other one. For that reason, I think that this is actually, I would say, probably your best choice for ranked in a hilarious way. And I know people aren't going to like that. This is Altaria Greninja. And if you don't know what this deck is, then you probably didn't play last season or the season before. But exceedingly popular. I think that this is actually the #1 contributor to kind of pushing Suicune and Greninja a little bit out of the metagame in terms of like some of the most played decks. This deck kind of popped up as a deck that actually does lose to Suicune and Greninja on average, but it's just an overall more powerful way to play Altaria. So we still have the Chingling stuff. So again, you immediately look in this deck and you go, all right, I mean, it's Chingling Altaria, which is enough to kind of just win in a lot of different strategies. But we're not playing Rocky Helmets. We're not playing Training Arena. We're not playing Red or any other damage modifiers. We're just playing Greninja Cyrus. So everybody knows what's going on here. This is effectively just a pure RNG-based high roll deck list. You don't want to go, first. You don't want to lead Froakie. You don't want to get Chingling locked. You don't want to like whiff your Greninja rare candies or your Cyruses. There's so much going on with this deck that does feel like it's very inconsistent. But whenever I recommend people to play this deck list, I just always recommend it to people that know how to play it. And I know that sounds like a little bit like obvious, but this is not like the easiest deck to play. This is a very RNG based deck, but the RNG can be manipulated in ways that definitely benefits your favor. This is a deck that is not only the most frustrating thing to play against probably in the entire game, but is one of just the silliest concepts in the entire game. And again, we're going to go back to sort of the stalling strategy of Mimikyu and how that interacts with Greninja. We have that in this deck already, and then that is in the form of Sing Swablu. So again, some decks in the game can get around Sing Swablu, right? They play PCL or they play, Celesteela or, Greninja EX, things that can get around status conditions and retreating. But basically, into most scenarios into the game, if you get put to sleep by Swablu, you might just lose the game. The Sing Swablu is one of the most insane things in the entire game. Not only is sleep just really strong, but again, think about it in this sense, right? Maybe we don't have Altaria. Maybe we just did not draw it, but if we did draw into it, if we had Altaria, we could win the game. Well, we can just go into Swablu, put our opponent to sleep, and then maybe just have a 50-50 chance of winning the game. Like, that's what it is. It's just, if you're ever at any point in the game where you think, oh, I almost won, you can say, oh, wait, I can just leave it up to a coin flip. So at the very least, we can this deck always has the opportunity to win, because even at the very least, you can just flip coins and then win the game. So it always has that option. So when you're playing this deck, you need to know how to utilize the RNG manipulation of putting your opponent to sleep potentially for a turn. Not only, even if you have Mega Altaria on the board, Sing Swablu can be enough to kind of fix damage modifications as well. Because if you put your opponent to sleep, that means that you get an extra turn to ping with Greninja, which is effectively just another plus 20 on the board. If we needed to draw another card to potentially top deck a Cyrus for win condition, we can put our opponent to sleep. So you just need a little bit of foresight with this deck. You need to know, okay, am I going to have enough on the board to win the game, or do I need to wait for a turn or wait for maybe a couple of turns or a top deck? And then that's when you utilize Sing Swablu. It's just a broken deck. And honestly, the high end of this deck is turn 2, full bench double Greninja Altaria, which does happen because we're playing double research, double copycat, which means effectively we can move through our entire deck in certain scenarios. Absolutely insane. I've done the full 170 damage combo turn 2 with Altaria with Jingling damage. That's 180 in 2 turns. Absolutely insane stuff. I mean, this deck list is so frustrating. I know a lot of people don't like it based off of its RNG aspects, and that's totally fine, totally understandable. But I'm telling you right now, as somebody that is fully ingrained in the competitive metagame of Pokemon Pocket, when you take a look at the metagame, it's all Suicune Greninjas, it's all Hydreigon, it's all Altaria. This is a deck that can beat all of it. It does not care. You can even beat Oricorios for that matter, because you can just stall with Altaria, you can item lock with Chingling, you can put him asleep, you can double Greninja pings, you can literally just beat anything with this deck. It just comes down to RNG. So I don't know if this is better than the other Altaria deck, but it's definitely something that I think I would consider right now more than even just playing Suicune and Greninja, because a lot of the aspects of Suicune and Greninja that it just sort of gets that it can get countered by. This is a deck that just sometimes doesn't care, because you just have the Sing Swablu, which is really kind of what this deck's based around. Absolutely broken. You can also use it to put Chinglings asleep, to get out your own Greninjas. There's so many things that this deck can do. Again, no matter what happens, you have the ability to win, because you can just use Swablu and put your opponent to sleep. So I just wanted to mention this because I think a lot of people are kind of forgetting about this deck. I think Altaria is becoming very popular with Gourgeist, with Indeedee, the traditional decks. I think Chingling is worth playing in basically any deck you can play it in still. But I think that the Greninja Altaria deck is Highroll personified, and if you are comfortable with this deck, if you're experienced with it, you're going to have a lot of success. It's something I would greatly recommend for the players that wanted to go this route. And again, it's Highroll. You might lose 5 in a row, you might win 5 in a row, but that's a net positive in ranked right now because of win streaks. And don't ask me why, it's just how they made the game. All right, next up here before we get to the weekly wildcard is Hydreigon. And you know what? I'm going to sit here and just say it because all last season and for the last month or so, I've been why are we playing Hydreigon? It doesn't make sense. You lose to Suicune, you lose to Altaria. All you're doing is just negating out all of the Oricorios in the metagame. And I kind of still believe that to be the case. But things have changed a little bit with Lucky Ice Pop, honestly, in a way that I don't love. So to be fair, Hydreigon is probably my #1 recommendation right now. And the funny thing is, there's nothing that you can do about it. There's nothing you or I can do to stop this from happening. happening. It's uncounterable. You know, like the nature of this deck is that no matter what you're playing, no matter what strategy you're trying to use, whether it's Chingling, item lock, or whatever, it doesn't matter. It just does not matter. Hydreigon has the opportunity to just beat you. No, it doesn't care. It doesn't care. And it kind of didn't care before, but now with double lucky ice pops in the game, it really does not care. Because sometimes they're going to flip only heads. They're going to go turn 2 Hydreigons. They're going to get their Poison Barb Nihilegos out. They're going to get it all. They're going to get it all every turn that they want to, and you do not have a chance to win. Now, I do think your best chance to win here is still going to be playing your own Chingling, maybe playing Guzmas. Like the Poison Barb stuff is super sketchy. Like it really is here because it ticks the damage. Like Hydreigon does 130, and that's like a weird number, but it's a really good number for effectively not ever needing to like attach energies to it. I know you do, but you know what I mean. It's 130, but then we're just like, you were either playing, I think, Rocky Helmets or whatever, but now people just play Poison Barb and they play a Nihilego. So at the very least, that's 140. Most of the time it's 150, but it's better than those numbers because most of the time, like you don't want to retreat and come back in, and most of the time you don't even have the ability to do that. So by trying to stay in the active spot and go through maybe 1 or 2 Hydreigons and then a Mega Absol with the poison tick damage and the lucky ice pops, it just is so ridiculous. And honestly, that's how I'm interpreting this. I know that Hydreigon lost in finals the last couple of weeks, but I think the lucky ice pop stuff really has kind of flipped everything over on its ear. I think that Hydreigon is the meta. I really do. I think unless you're playing Altaria and Chinglings, like you play Hydreigon, and that is really how I'm defining everything here. So I know we kind of spent 20 minutes talking about other decks because I wanted to give people some ideas, some options, but at the end of the day, guys, this is by far the most ridiculous thing in the meta, maybe ever. And I really think like just the lucky ice pops did it for me. They really did. They were like, we're not even playing Indeedee. So now it's like the only way we get around like winning by KOing Hydreigon is if we get like an early Greninja and they bench Absol, and somehow we can kind of use that to win the game. Other than that, like you're gonna have to go through these Hydreigons. And they even have like leap over Absol for the bench win condition damage. Like it does whatever it wants. Sometimes they're gonna full heal with the one lucky ice pop. And you're gonna have to sit there, guy. You're gonna have to sit there for about 45 seconds to see that coin flip and to just see them heal infinitely with lucky ice pop. It's going to happen to you. So it's either gonna happen to you or against you. So you should probably be playing a deck like this right now. I don't know what they were thinking, man. I really don't. This is RNG personified, like in its purest of forms. And what's funny too is that like unlike Greninja decks, our only option here is to just go face. That's what this deck does. I mean, you have an Absol there, but you don't ever have to use it unless you don't need to. So the entire strategy of this deck is to literally just draw your cards and play them and then attack the active Pokemon. And then like if you have Cyrus and you're like, oh, cool, like I can win that way. There you go. There is one concept of this deck, which is when you should be benching Absol. Of course, if you're going up against a Greninja deck, then maybe don't, maybe you bench it later in the game. I don't know. The other thing about Lucky Ice Pop is it can only heal the active, right? So if you bench an Absol and it starts getting damaged, like, it's like Indeedee, right? You can't heal it unless it's in the active. But Absol can be a really useful tool. Knowing when to go into Absol, maybe discarding that Cyrus, right, can win you the game. So there's some concepts of making the correct play to win games. Anybody can throw a game, that's for sure. I mean, like we talk about how decks are easy or not, but like anybody can lose any game by making the wrong play. People think Pokemon Pocket's all RNG, but those same people are just losing games by making the wrong plays. I do it all the time. So I think this is a quite what I'm trying to get to is that this is probably not only one of the strongest decks, if not the strongest deck in the game, but probably one of the most simple decks as well, which is never a good recipe, quite frankly. I don't know what they're going to do about this. I don't know, because I don't even think the weakness really matters with Hydreigon. I just don't know where we go from here. Lucky Ice Pops, the pop has entered the meta, and I don't know what that means for the competitive metagame of Pokemon Pocket, but trust me, you're going to see a lot of Lucky Ice Pop. You're going to see a lot of Hydreigon, and that's going to be your ranked season. I hope you enjoy, because it's going to be a wild ride. Let's go into the weekly wild card this week, which is definitely a wild card. And I wanted to include this mainly because it actually got first place at a tournament just like a couple of days ago. I'm sure maybe some people have already mentioned it online or whatever, but this is going to be Leafeon Celebi. That's right. Yeah. This is actually, there's interesting stuff here because I think that and people probably do remember the Jungle Totem Superior stuff from back in the day where you would double the effective energies onto Celebi and you flip double the coins and it was kind of broken, right? Like everybody remembers that from back in the day, but I don't think anybody's really reconsidered it ever since we've gotten all of these crazy consistency cards specifically for the grass archetype. So this deck may seem like an absolute pile, which it is. It's a complete pile. We're playing double EVs, three Leafeons. We're playing one Snivy, one Servine, one Superior, and one Celebi. So you might just look at this deck and go, like, this is not consistent. What are we doing? But then you also, again, just kind of put into your brain for a minute and think, okay, well, we have Research, we have Pokeball, we have Copycat, we have May, and we have Quick Growth Extract. Like all of a sudden, you're like, every card in our deck is either Pokemon or a way that we can get the Pokemon we want. Which is kind of crazy. And I don't think this concept has really been explored ever since a lot of these consistency cards came into the game. And maybe this is kind of what Dina was thinking with the grass archetypes. I don't know. Quick Growth Extract is inherently a broken card, and I know that it's going to be really impactful if they ever release like really strong grass Pokemon. Are there any evolution grass megas? Like any like stage 1 or stage 2 grass mega Pokemon? We have Venusaur. Are there any others? There's got to be. Meganium is a new one. I don't know. I can't off the top of my head remember, but any mega grass Pokemon that come to the game that aren't basics, like the only, I guess, like Pinsir, are going to play Quick Growth Extract, and it's going to be quite broken. And again, take a look at this deck list, and you're going to think to yourself, it doesn't look consistent, but it's literally the entire deck is Leafeon and Celebi, and then the Superior, and then all of the other decks or cards are just, ways to get those Pokemon effectively. And I think it's way more consistent than you might think. It's also grass, and grass will inherently give you an advantage, right, into certain dark archetypes that might be popular in the metagame, inherently speaking, which is a pretty big deal. Leaf Cape's going to bring Leafeon up to 170. That's a really nice number to be into Hydreigon. You can live a hit even with the poison. Celebi is very, very prominent and very effective in a lot of ways. I kind of considered it multiple times since Mega Pokemon released because, Mega Pokemon, they're hard to one-hit KO. Like, there's just not a lot of ways to hit for 200 damage in the game. Celebi does that. Celebi is one of those guys that can just sort of one-hit KO anything in the game, which makes it inherently valuable in a metagame where there are some really high HP Pokemon. So this might be a meme strategy, might just be sort of a flash in the pan, but I had to showcase it to you guys. It got first place at like a 200-player tournament recently, which to me qualifies it perfectly as our wild card for the week. And I think the grass stuff is very unexplored in general. So shout out to Jungle Totem Celebi. This stuff came out literally a year ago, which is pretty funny, but here it's back winning tournaments. You gotta love it. So anyway, there's the video. There's the best decks for ranked. Comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Have fun playing Hydreigons all season long. It's going to be great. We'll go live soon here on YouTube and on Twitch for some ranked battles. It'll be chill, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, guys, hopefully we have a fun season. Who knows? But we're only, I think, like 2 weeks away from the next set release, which is also crazy. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're on the road to 50,000 subscribers. And don't forget to go register, of course, for PMPT number 20. You got to go register. You got to do it. All right, guys, let's get out of here. Peace out. Have a good one. We'll see you guys later. And yeah. Bye.